when we analyze such a economic crisis, impact on an economy, basically economists like to use models. There are various models we can use. Quite often use model for Sri Lanka to analyze the economic situation is called the two-gap model. The two-gap model is a Keynesian type of model where the simple explanation coming, there is both side gaps in the economy. One is external gap, the other one is internal gap. The external gap for Sri Lanka, for example, import is very high. If the exports are less, then we have to pay for more imports. So that is called external gap. Investment and savings gap, particularly private sector and the government, this usually comes as the government fiscal policy budgetary gap. So when the foreign exchange gap with the savings gap equivalent, there is a problem in the economy. So here you can see now budget deficit in Sri Lanka, the government sector income and government sector expenditure that has been increasing. Budget deficit as a percentage of GDP has increased from 5.3% to you can see 11.1%. On the other hand, external trade gap has been increasing in Sri Lanka due to various reasons. Then in recent past, the government imposes the import control due to, there are two impacts. When there is a crisis in the economy, micro level, people want to buy more goods and services to keep home. So at macro level, as a result, the aggregate demand going up, the consumption level increasing, and import level also increases because people believe the next month they might not have goods, so they want to buy today more. Then entire country GDP is going like that. So therefore, what will happen as a result, the import demand will high. So then the country need additional dollar to cater that import demand. So therefore, usually in a crisis situation, theoretically, import control is coming. So the import control led to the reduced trade balance during last 2 years, particularly during last 2 years. You can see the trade balance has come down. But anyway, there is a two gap, the internal gap and external gap in the Sri Lankan economy. Then if we try to understand roots and outcomes of the economic crisis of Sri Lanka, what kind of roots behind the economic crisis in Sri Lanka? If I try to explain you with simple terminologies, number one is long-term structural issues we had in the economy. And as many of you are aware that we had a civil war for 30 years. So there were structural problems in the economy and problems in policy formulation and implementation. There was a sudden terrorist attack for Sri Lanka in 2019, which is known as Easter attack, and of course, COVID-19 health crisis. As well as many of us know, Sri Lanka is the most open economy in the South Asia. We introduced the trade liberalization policies in 1977. So therefore, we are with the global trade, global migration, and foreign investment and all other. So therefore, the global impact from the health crisis and economic crisis is on Sri Lanka's activities. So these are kind of the major root causes of the current economic crisis. Then if we try to understand one by one, as I told you that Sri Lankan economy had long-run structural issues. The one structural issue that we could not develop strong manufacturing industrial sector, unlike the other emerging Asian countries. So as a result, our exports highly concentrated into agricultural goods for a longer period. Agriculture represents around 80% from 1950 to 77, long period. But thereafter, you can see it has come down. We could start industrial sector, which of course basically concentrated on textiles and garment industries in 1980s, 90s, and until the recent past. So industrial sector, our contribution is now 76%, but out of that total exports, 44% are exports going as garment, ready-made garment productions. So therefore still our export structure is concentrated into garment industry, tea and rubber, coconut and other primary good, close to primary good exports. So that is one of the fundamental mistake we had to face and structural issues we have. On the other hand, imports, if you see, also same, that still 21% goes with the consumption. Still the food items are still imported, and of course intermediate goods. Again, particularly we are importing petroleum, textile raw materials, and fertilizer, other particularly chemical fertilizer and other area. So therefore well distributed import structure is there. So Sri Lankan economy is having issue with the long run standing with the intermediate good imports, which cannot reduce in an even crisis situation.